College before going off to Southern California, where I learned how great it is to live here in Southern Utah. And I know why all those people want to come here. And welcome to all of you who come. Besides the mortuary, I did start out in real estate in California as a real estate appraiser, believe it or not. Moved into the mortgage business where I had a career of 13 years. I also, as my hobby, I have a little cattle ranch here on the Arizona Strip, so you can say I am somewhat of an expert in, excuse my French, bull poop. So it makes for a great place here in politics. I currently serve on the city council. I'm running for mayor. My wife and I have 5 children, and we feel so privileged to live here and raise our children here. We love you very much. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Thomas. I was not born and raised here, but I got here as fast as I could. I married a local gal from Hurricane, and together we raised 6 children. Our oldest 4 are married. Our youngest passed away a year ago, possibly due to COVID, we're not sure. And we have 12 grandchildren. I started my business in home design in 1993. I've been designing homes since long before that. So I'm part of the industry that you are all involved with. And so I understand your needs and desires, I believe. And I am very in favor of the Lake Powell Pipeline and very close to changing the name of Dixie State University.
My name is Roger Gumby. I'm running for City Council in the City of Washington. I grew up in St. George, just up Bluff Street, about 400 south, before there was a Bluff Street, or before there was 915 here in St. George. I lived in Washington for about 40 years. I'm currently serving as a Washington City Council member. I was appointed about a year ago to a federal agency. I have served on the council previously. My profession is a professional land surveyor. I've been in that business for 45 years. And I was educated here in St. George. I went to Dixie High School, attended Dixie College back in 76, 77. By the way, I'm all in favor of keeping the name Dixie, and in all respects. I attended Utah University at that time as well. I have my own land surveying business, RV surveying. My son and I own a business. We're a small business. We understand small business. We serve a lot of you that are realtors and builders. We do a lot of work with all of you that build homes and do real estate as we are in that business. So I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for inviting me here.
Well, hello everyone, my name is Kimberly Casterson, and I want to use my time today to talk about a topic that has been kind of controversial with some people, and that is the topic of freedom. I've had some people tell me that freedom isn't a local issue, and I just want to say that I believe that freedom is something that every single one of us in this room should be concerned about. And it is a duty of all of us to protect freedom, especially as elected representatives to stand for freedom. President Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction and must be protected." And he said we need to do a better job at getting the message out that America is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. And so it's up to all of us here to protect freedom. And we've seen what's happening in the world and here in America of people standing up for freedom and what it's doing. And so I will be one that will stand for freedom, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here. Thankful for all of you to come and want to be involved, and I'm running for Washington City Council.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Brett Henderson, and I'm running for Washington City Council. I moved to Washington City in 1979 when I was 11 years old. I graduated from Pineview High School in 1985. I served in the Utah National Guard from 1986 to 1994.
And I graduated from Dixie College in 1990 and SUU in 1993 with a degree in history and secondary education. My wife and I own a small construction company. We build about 10 houses a year at Red Henderson Construction. We've been in business for 29 years now. We also own a small real estate brokerage in real estate. My wife Rachel is the principal broker, and we have myself and 8 other realtors that work there. My little motto for my campaign is keep government small and keep taxes low. And that's what I intend to do if I should be lucky enough to be elected. I appreciate this opportunity to be here with you, and thank you for this.
Marissa Fain, Washington City Council. I grew up right here in southern Utah. I've lived in Washington City for the last 15 years. I've been with my husband for 22. We have 4 kids from 3rd grade to a sophomore at Dixie State. I got my degree at Southern Utah University. I worked for the Public Health Agency, the school district, and ran my own business. I'm currently campaigning on my own dollar, not accepting any donations or endorsements from super PACs or groups, because I want to put the citizens' voice back in our city government. Marissa Fain, Washington City Council.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so now we're going to get into our first question here. We're going to start down here again. This end, we'll work our way down. The second question, we'll start at that end and come back, and then we'll have our closing remarks. So the first question I have is, what challenge or opportunities do you see that we are dealing with related to growth here in southern Utah?
That encompasses just about everything. With growth, we're experiencing obviously water challenges. We're experiencing home prices, and we are experiencing more demand than we have supply for. But I think it's our future as we're looking at it. Water is the biggest issue that comes with growth right now. We all know what our water situation is like. That is the only thing that will stop us from growing. So we have to look at our resources extremely well and rethink how we conserve. I'm for the Lake Health Pipeline, but it could be a pipe dream. I'm hoping it's not. And so now we're looking at our reuse and how that we can use that and get us forward into the future so that we don't have to stop growing. There's a reason people love this place and they want to be here. And we want them to be here. I don't want uncontrollable growth. We need to make sure our infrastructure is in place to keep up with our growth. But for right now, that's our biggest issue facing us is water and growth. And I think the builders and the realtors know that. And so that's our top challenge and priority right now.
Good luck to you guys coming up with something different to say by the time it gets to you. But obviously, this is all your fault for doing such a good job of marketing this area. And now the world has discovered us, and it seems like we're just like on the tip of the iceberg of what could happen. When you think about all the people across the country who, if they had an idea, would want to live here. So that is the issue. In a meeting, I think just yesterday, there was actually a study done with the available land mass in Washington County and under current zoning and without any restrictions on water, our population in Washington County could be, anybody got a guess? Or will be when it's built out? 814,640. They're right down to my kids and myself, and we're 7 of those people. So the projection is great. Obviously, we have some water issues we have to deal with. So I'm a big proponent of the Lake Powell Pipeline. I come from a farming, ranching family here in southern Utah. I have a 9-mile pipeline that runs a stream of water about like my pinky, and it's a lifesaver for me out on the cattle ranch. So water, like we say, is for fighting, whiskey's for drinking. We have to get our hands around what water resources we have, based on the fact that we don't know for sure whether or not we're going to be able to win the fight on getting our share of water from Lake Powell, the pipeline we got. Responsible, city officials will look for every water resource we can find. And I think that's part of the Lake Powell pipeline, study and moving forward on it. We have to do those things. Obviously, we're working on the reuse water. We have a lot of water that goes back into the river that we can store and reuse there. So there's a lot of things we can do.
All of us know and understand that growth is a blessing and a curse. In our industry, it is a blessing because we need the growth to continue making a living the way that we do. And it is a curse in that it brings with it its problems. And those things that we need to deal with. One of the things that I believe we need to do better at is sticking to the plan that we have. When we make a general plan in our cities, for example, we need to stick to those as best we can. When there's a plan that we can follow, it's easier to accomplish. As far as water goes, as I said before, I'm very in favor of the Lake Powell pipeline, all of the new reservoirs that are coming online, conservation options. But I think our greatest thing, in my opinion, is that we need to realize that God is where we get our water, and that we can't make a single drop ourselves. We can conserve it, we can dig for it, we can purify it, we do all kinds of things to it, but we can't create it. And we need our Father in heaven to bless us with water, and he needs to hear our prayers to do that. And aside from that, I completely believe that we need to do everything in our power to conserve, to create new water sources and so forth. So, thank you.
Water, of course, is the topic today, and likewise, water is a very major concern. I am in favor of the Lake Powell pipeline. I believe it will happen someday. It will be a few years, but if we don't have Lake Powell pipeline, it's going to all end. And my comment on water is no growth is not an option. Growth is good for all of us. And we can't afford to be paying to keep everything going in our communities without growth. So another item that we don't talk too much about is energy, power. I recently had a project over in Page, over near the Lake Powell, the Navajo Power Generation Station. Has recently been taken down. Coal-fired power plants. We all know across the country we're trying to get rid of all coal-fired power plants. But it's interesting to go over there. The plant is gone, and the two major power lines are right where the plant was. And my understanding is there will be 3 other coal-fired power plants in the state of Arizona that will be decommissioned over the next few years. Where is the power going to come from? I believe that this NuScale power with these small nuclear reactors that UAMPS is involved with is probably going to be an answer for us in the power area. Because we do need water, we must have water, but we also have to have the power to move the water, get the water out of the ground and so forth. So power is kind of a secondary issue of importance. Obviously, we have a lot of growth, and growth is something that we all are going to have to deal with. In my line of work, I have experienced a lot of the change, and I understand what it takes for infrastructure to be built. And I just have an insight on that a lot of people have. So I appreciate the opportunity again to be here, and I hope we all can work together with this growth and with the issue of water. In my city, I would love to see us all, we need to get these standards in place right now for water conservation, for new growth. And I would just hope that all who are here who have anything to do with making that decision on each city's part and the service district, that we do it soon. Because in Washington, I think we're growing about 100 homes a month, and now is the time.
Well, I could just sit down. You guys all look great. I don't know how many people came a couple months ago when, I can just remember his name was Moses. He was an engineer from Cedar City. And he was talking about water, and someone asked him, what's the deal with the Lake Powell pipeline? And he could not tell us anything about it because of the process that they were going through. So, water, storage, conservation, growth, responsible growth. Just recently, this year, my husband was looking to buy property for his business, and he had been working with different real estate agents, and we hadn't been able to get something. And so I decided to go get my real estate license so I could try to find a property. And so then I found out exactly what you guys are all experiencing with the fun of trying to find property for people, because we put in a couple offers and we didn't get it because someone else had offered cash. And so we don't have that kind of cash lying around. So anyway, so we have growth and water, and I also think we should focus on our police officers and our firefighters, because of growth. We're gonna need more people to have safety here in our cities, and we need to also stand behind them so they feel that we have people here that respect them. Not like other places that do not respect their people. And so I'll always back the blue and support our firefighters.
So I agree with everything that's been said here. Maybe I'll go down a little different road here. Here's something that you might be interested in. So I said we moved here in 1979 to be close to my grandparents. My grandfather we lived north of the freeway in Washington, and we're one of the oldest families north of the freeway in Washington. When we moved there, it was just dirt roads and just few homes. But my grandfather was a real estate broker in the 70s here, and he's the one that helped the market north of the freeway when they first developed that up there. But his brokerage was called Red Rock Real Estate back in the 70s. So those of you that are members of that brokerage, he was the original Red Rock, but of course he passed away in the 80s. Let me focus on something that's kind of specific to Washington. In Washington City, we've had tremendous residential growth over the last 10 to 15 years. And it's been great residential growth. We've got some wonderful subdivisions in Washington, and I think it's been pretty well planned. What we're lacking in Washington is the commercial development. We're about 5 to 10 years behind probably what we should be. So in the next 10 years in Washington, we're probably going to be looking at a lot of commercial development. We've got some good things planned and in the works. We've got some good things around exit 13. Some of us, look at downtown Washington and we think, there's some real potential there. Downtown Washington is kind of the blank slate that we could, have some good development down there, and we've got some ideas to go with that. But I'd like to be a part of that, that vision in the future for Washington City. We need commercial development seriously in Washington City to help with our taxes, to relieve the tax burden off the citizens. We need some good retail and some things like that so that we can, compete as far as sales tax and as far as what we need in Washington. But that's, I'd like to be a part of that in the future, so thank you.
Unprecedented growth, right? Nobody had on their minds worldwide pandemic, everybody moved to Utah. That wasn't out there, but it happened, and it has left us with a lot of growing pains. Our general plan, transportation plan, and housing plan have become completely obsolete in just a matter of a couple of years. Washington City grew in 2020 by 1,000 houses. They are meant to grow by 3,000 from 2020 to 2030. At this rate, we will meet that maximum in another year. We have a lot of growing pains that we need to work out. With that being said, our general plan needs to be updated, and it needs to be updated to include all types of housing, and then we need to stick to that plan. I agree with Brett. Our commercial to residential ratio is 92% to 8%. It is a saying in Washington City, you live in Washington and you go to pay your money or work in St. George. I want to switch that. I want you to be able to live in Washington City, find a good job, and spend your money there too. So that is what I'll be focusing on too, is commerce growth. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, there we go. Appreciate those comments. Let's lead us into our second question, which has a lot to do with growth. We talked about how people want to come here, but we do have a limited inventory. What can you do, or should you do as an elected official to address attainable or affordable housing? We'll start at the far end and go to the back.
Well, I was told in Washington City that the average house costs $100,000 more than anywhere else in the county. If that's true, we've got some big issues. I have an adult daughter that now is a sophomore at Dixie State, trying to go to school and work, and she's still living at home because the options of trying to find an apartment and go to school and work are non-existent. We need to work to find places. I've lived in all those types of housing. They're stepping stones, they're part of life. We still need to include those in our society. With updating a general plan, I will look at different options, federal funding, get creative with developers. We've got to have aspects for everyone in our community. We can't outprice our working force.
Thank you. We've got two kids that live here in St. George. They live out in, towards Bloomington. And they're both young families, and they're renting, and they're paying $1,800 a month for just a small townhome. And to me, that's just unbelievable. We've got a serious problem with affordable housing. One of the things that I'd like to do is maybe, one of the things as a builder that I'm willing to look at all options. We need to, as elected officials, look at all options to help alleviate some of the problems with affordable housing. One of the things I've always been concerned with as a builder is if I go build a home that's 1,200 square feet as a starter home versus a 6,000 square foot luxury home, the impact fees and that are essentially the same for those two. And I've always wondered about that. Why, it makes it extra hard for somebody, a young family, to build a 1,200 square foot house. I don't know what the solution to that is, but I'm willing to look at all options to alleviate that a little bit. One of the things I think we can do is soften some of our ordinances a little bit. One time I went to Washington City a few years ago. I wanted to build a detached garage with a little apartment above it, so that we could have some of our kids, when they get married, just live up there. And I wasn't able to do that just because some of the ordinances in place wouldn't allow that. It had to do with, a detached structure had to be attached to the original house, which is unfortunate because that didn't work for me. I think we can soften our ordinances a little bit. I think we can look at a lot of different options to make Washington City, and that's where I live and that's where I'm running, a little bit more user-friendly as far as affordable housing goes. So thank you.
I agree with Brett. I think if a homeowner wants to build an apartment on his home, his property, he should have the property rights to be able to do that. And so I would be in favor of maybe looking at some things and maybe softening some of the regulations that we have. And also maybe, as we update the general plan, just to look at different places that we can, to have a variety of different types of housing that are more affordable or not, just as we go forward, that are maybe smaller. And then also maybe looking into maybe incentivizing builders, doing a little bit more, giving them a little bit more leeway on I guess, for the zoning. If they want to have, we can give them an incentive to a little bit more zoning for an area to have it be, so they can have a little bit more homes on the property to have that opportunity to have affordable housing there. So.
Affordable housing is a tough issue. I have 3 grandchildren live in Washington, and I can't imagine how they'll ever be able to afford a home under current circumstances. My children, I have 2 here in the area and 2 in the Salt Lake Valley and 1 in Denver. And some of them would like to be back here one day, but it's tough. I don't know the absolute answer. There's been a lot of things talked about. Working with developers and trying to get some affordable housing units is one possibility. Another is bringing in business that pay high salaries. Problem that I see with that is that under the current average income here in our area, if you double that, it would still be a challenge. And I just don't see that happening very quickly. I'm not saying that's not what we should do. We should work to get businesses that will have good paying jobs that will help in the effort. I know that it's very difficult. One thing that I want to mention along with this idea of maybe having developers to participate and help in that is, we do have things, such things as property rights, and there are landowners who want to sell land for development. They want to develop their own land, and we need to be very conscious about property rights and their ability to be able to sell land or to develop their own land. We need to work with them, but we don't want to put any too serious restriction on them to where we infringe on property rights. Kimberly's talked about rights that we have as a nation. I think property rights is an extremely valuable thing that we need to respect, and I'm sure that those of you in the real estate business understand that. I'm in a line of work where I deal with landowners all the time, and we just need to be conscious of that. But we do need to be open to any suggestions as to how we can resolve this affordable housing, because it's a challenge, no question about it.
6 years ago, I took office as a city councilman in Hurricane, and one of the issues that we faced was that at the time that I took office, nobody in town was allowed to have a basement apartment that they could rent out unless they were zoned for a duplex. Nobody could have a bonus room above their garage that they could rent out because of the same issue. And one of the first things that I did as a city councilman was work to change the zoning ordinances so that we could do that. So that now anybody in town is able to finish the basement and rent that out. They can finish a bonus room in their house and they can rent that out. And I think that goes a long way to providing a place for people to live that's more affordable. One of the problems is that if it becomes a vacation rental, then it's counterproductive to low-income housing. And so there's a problem there that might be able to be worked out as well. We do have a lot of illegal vacation rentals, and perhaps by cracking down on some of those, we could create some more affordable places to rent. I don't know that that's the answer, but I know some people, that's one of the ways that they want to approach that. As a home designer, I have maybe another perspective, and that is people come to me to design a home. Robert's Quality Home Design is my company. And everybody wants their home to have curb appeal so that they can turn around and sell it someday for more money. Some of the things that make houses more expensive are the way that you build it. There are ways to build a more affordable home. The problem is a lot of people don't want those homes in their neighborhood. And I don't believe that small, tiny places built like large apartments is necessarily a great answer for affordable housing, because I feel like those are still sold off for large profits. But I think there's ways to create some changes in our zoning and the way we do our subdivision development. I think there's some loosening of the restrictions that we could do in the way of allowing somebody that has an acre to subdivide it into smaller parcels that they can build houses for their family members, for example, without having to follow all of the requirements of this full subdivision. That's one option that can make it cheaper to develop. So I believe there are a variety of things that can be done, but I understand it's a complicated issue. Thank you.
Yeah, if any of you have a real simple answer on how to solve this issue, then please come and let me know. This is a complex issue. There's some people that have some ideas that include heavy-handed government, and I am absolutely against that. So we do know that markets are kind of a come and go. It hasn't been very long ago that I talked to somebody that if they could just sell one home a month, they could stay in business. Some of you probably remember that. So we have to remember there is some ebb and flow market. And so when we get done with all this growth and with all of these ideas, let's make sure we still have a desirable community to live in. So we need to make sure that we are growing in a way that's sustainable in the future, that keeps the community great. It wasn't, when I first started, when I first ran for city council, the discussion was about our biggest export was our children. We wanted to create economic opportunity so that they could stay here. Well, I had my two oldest get married this year, 2 months apart. She decided to do it all at once. And like was mentioned, they they've had the joy of trying to find a place to live once married. So although they have economic opportunity now, they really can't afford to live here. So I had an employee who took advantage of the market, sold his house, and left to Texas, where he could buy a bigger home for less money and get out of debt. I tried to hire another employee from another place who I offered way more than I should be, than I felt I should be paying, way more than any of my other employees, way more than he was making where he was at. He got here for about 2 weeks and he was done. He said, I'm going back. There's no way. I made 3 offers on houses, all of them sold for above the offer. So we know we have an issue. One of the ways that we in this body can help is really keeping regulation down and trying not to make any more additional costs in housing than are absolutely necessary. That's the one place we can. Other than that, we do need to make sure that we're growing so that we're sustainable into the future.
It's always fun to go last, because, what has been said, you can just say ditto and sit down. There is one thing the city of St. George has done, and we've put together, it's called HAC, Housing Action Coalition. Some of you may have been involved with that. We have brought in all of our community partners, so county commissioners, every city in the county has been represented on that board. The board of realtors, the builders, school district, IHC, you name it, they're there. Trying to come up with some creative ideas because we're all feeling it. The hospital feels it, trying to hire employees. Everybody has an issue to live here. So that's been a good thing we've done. Another thing St. George did was pass an ordinance to allow accessory dwelling units anywhere that has a lot 7,000 square feet or larger. We've never done that before for full-term rentals, not short-term rentals. That's another issue we run into too. St. George probably has 2,400 illegal short-term rentals in the city. And if we could free those up for long-term rentals, it would sure help a lot of families out. I know the county is working with SITLA on an interlocal agreement to get some land from SITLA to work on some affordable housing projects there. So we're all trying to do our part. We don't want to overregulate. We need to get a lot of regulations out. The first thing, the city of St. George just passed, the council just passed tiny homes for the first time. And that will be on Dixie Drive, kind of where that new assisted living center is going. And try those out and see what they're like. And we're looking at all options at this point to allow people to the ability to live here.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll now go into our closing remarks, and you guys are really great on time. I don't think these are politicians, I think they're public servants, because they don't talk very long. So instead of going for 90 seconds on your close, we're gonna go for 2 minutes each, okay? And so you can address any topic that you feel you may not have touched on. Other than that, just give us your closing remarks, and I'll get back up after that. We'll start us off.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here and coming to listen to us. Campaigning is brutal, and 12 more days, but who's counting, I said to one of my kids last night, we should have built one of those paper chains that you do at Christmas time and start ripping them off. But I have been absolutely humbled to be the mayor of St. George, and it's been challenging. It's a lot of work, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I enjoy serving this community. One thing that was said, we've talked about affordable housing and getting employees, and the city of St. George is hurting for employees, and we need your patience, especially when it comes to the building department and the engineering department and different things. But even with police officers and firefighters, our public safety, that's my top issue in our city. My oldest son is a police officer. He's been a police officer for 9 years. My heart bleeds blue. I have a son-in-law who's a firefighter. My heart bleeds red. we are a public safety family and we have to prioritize our funding for our public safety because as we grow, we have to keep up with the growth and make sure this community stays safe and clean that we all love. That's why we came here. I want us as we grow to keep that hometown feeling. And so I just will always make this community a priority. I ask for your vote on November 2nd. If you like Jimmy and I both, vote for me. Jimmy stays on the council.
Always the workhorse. That's right. Always the workhorse. Thank you for being here today. Truly is an honor to be able to come and spend some time with you. The reality is I'm in the fight with you. This is a service opportunity for me. I provide for my family in another way, but I love my community, and this is where I've chosen to spend my time. A lot of people might say, you're too busy for this. Yeah, you all are too busy to be here today as well, but we choose to do the things that are important. This is where I choose to spend some of my time to serve my community that I love. So I want to point out, thank Mr. Thomas for pointing out something that's really, when you talk about God. Our country today, we're in danger of losing our freedom. That was another thing that was brought up. And if you want to know if I leave you with one thing, we'll talk about that, and that's loyalty. Loyalty is important to me. Loyalty to my family, loyalty to my country, loyalty to God, and loyalty to the community. One thing I will never do is tell you one thing and do another. And that's what I've tried to do in my public service up to this point. Yeah, I am still on the council, but it's time for me to move on. So if you still want Jimmy Hughes to be involved, this is your chance. Vote Jimmy Hughes on November 2nd. Thank you.
At the beginning of 2020, when COVID first hit, all of us know what that was like. To be told by our government, stay home from school, stay home from work, this will only be 2 weeks, flatten the curves. They lied. What has been perpetrated against us, I think, is a government problem, or at least they are largely to blame. And in my opinion, that's why I decided to run, was because I want to stand between the citizens and the government and stop the government from taking away the rights that we have. When my son passed away in June, he was diagnosed with COVID in the hospital, but none of his symptoms were COVID. He probably died of an autoimmune disorder, and it may have been triggered by COVID. But reporters called us and wanted to interview us about his death, and I said to my children, don't you dare talk to the press and tell them that everybody else's rights need to be taken away because my son or your brother died of COVID. We have our rights to do things. I got vaccinated because I chose to be vaccinated, but I will never require somebody else to be vaccinated because that was my choice. I will wear a mask when I choose to wear a mask. If I'm protecting somebody else that I'm around or I feel the need to be protected, I will do that. I had a daughter with leukemia at age 15, and we sheltered our home. We protected ourselves from other people because she had an autoimmune problem at that time. I completely understand that, but I will never take away somebody else's rights because of the fear of this virus or any other virus, and that's where I stand. Thank you.
Yes, we don't want to talk about these government mandates. I'm not in favor of any of those. I've had COVID twice, so they tell me. So I'm immune to that, I guess, for a little while at least. Most shots, I wouldn't really want to require anyone. I don't know how much, as a local community, we can do. We get a lot of mandates from the federal government. And one of them that is directly related to our communities is, I think all of you see your utility bill come, and you see a little note on there that has to do with stormwater management, or stormwater maintenance fee. That's a federal government mandate that came to the cities, the state, that then came to the cities. And we're all paying for that every day. I'm not fully in favor of that, but we have to fight our battles where we can win, and we can't win that. Another one we had just recently, and I think a lot of you in the room probably understand that, is this LID, low impact development, that has to do with stormwater runoff from subdivisions and lots. That's adding a tremendous amount of cost to every lot. So on one hand, we're talking about affordable housing. On the other hand, the federal government is mandating these things that cost us more. And those are just a couple of the things that we deal with as far as mandates. Just one real quick thing, and this is kind of humorous. I've been dubbed the old guy, and I don't take any offense to that whatsoever in past discussions. And Ronald Reagan has been quoted quite a few times, and I've been thinking about the quote that he made when he was running for president a number of years ago, obviously, with Robert Dole, when he said, "I won't let age be an issue in the campaign." And he says, "I will not take advantage, or I will not let my opponent's age or youth and inexperience be an issue." So I have a lot of experience, bottom line, and I've been a council member before. I'm currently a council member. I'm in the line of work. I worked for St. Louis City for 14 years in the engineering division, so I have a great insight on what's happening. Thank you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you what he's referring to, because they asked me why we should vote for me, and I said, well, how many old guys do you guys need? The only way I can say that is because I've gotten to know all these, and also this beautiful lady over here that I'm running with, and they've been really great to run with. And I just want to say, since we're bringing up the mandates and everything, I really love what our Washington City, our county commissioners did. They made it known that here in Washington County that we are going to respect God-given rights and the freedom here. And I think that's what I want to do for Washington City. I want to pass a resolution that says, here in Washington City, we respect people's rights. And we do have mandates that come down, but there's a solution to that, and that's peaceful non-compliance. And it makes a difference. And we've seen people standing up to government mandates when the government trying to mandate, to put something in their body that you don't want, and people saying, that's a decision that I should be able to make. And something else that I want to bring up is, sometimes some people want to put us in this box that we should only think about water, growth, and infrastructure. But I've had some people reach out to me, and they don't feel comfortable getting up in front of people, and they don't like to cause they don't want to be attacked. And so I've had the opportunity to be able to speak in behalf of mothers who had children when they were having the mask mandate, and they had children who were passing out, who were having migraines every day after school, who had thrown up, and who were having breathing issues, and then emotional trauma from having to wear the masks. And so, I spoke up for them and went to different people to try to make a difference for them, because they didn't feel comfortable doing that. And so I will stand for people. I'm okay to stand in front of people and risk being attacked, because I will stand up for people in Washington City.
One of the blessings of living in this area is that you have generally some good, solid people running for office. All 7 people up here are generally solid, conservative, good people that are going to make good decisions for the cities. The reason I'm running for Washington City Council is I love Washington City. I love the people there. There's 4 things that I will use as a filter if I'm lucky enough to get on the city council as issues come up. Number 1, does this keep government small? Number 2, does this keep our taxes low? Number 3, is this good for the people of Washington City? And number 4, does this help continue our quality of life in Washington City? Those are the filters that I'll use as issues come forth if I'm, elected to the city council. I appreciate your time here today. This is a good group of people. Appreciate your support, and it's good to see people that are involved in the community and that care about their city officials. Thank you.
In closing, I'm going to touch on 2 issues. The first will be water. I am a proponent of conservation. Our public works directors throughout the county are working with the water district to develop a new landscape ordinance. I think this is paramount to our future. We need to conserve, and that is the first area to start. Washington City has drilled some new drills, and they have also working with a developer to pressurize our secondary water system. All these are great stepping stones to help with our water situation. With that being said, I'm a mom, and as a mom, I always have a worst case scenario. And I think we need a worst case scenario plan for our water. I'm a proponent for the pipeline, and I do think it'll come to pass, but we still need a plan in case it doesn't. I'd like to develop a task force consisting of elected officials, water district, and people from your industry to develop a 3-year phase-out plan. That plan will be based on population, it will be based on water consumption and water values. Hopefully this plan is never triggered, but I don't believe that we can live in the dark and just one day wake up without water. My second part is I have a mental health background, and I'm married to a retired fireman. Mental health is very important to me, and then so is public safety. With that being said, I would like to develop a free public mental health program that works to teach warning signs of mental health and also teach people where they can get services. The second part would be a public safety emphasis that gives our public safety officials the resources they need to get the mental health that they need, and also training on how to deal with individuals that are suffering with mental health illness. We're Maine, Washington City Council. Thank you.
We appreciate all of these candidates coming here today and speaking to us. Let's give them another round of applause. Before we get into closing announcements, we would in closing like to recognize that Hurricane Mayor candidate Jeanette Billings is here with us, and Commissioner Gil Longquist is also with us today. We appreciate you coming. Remember our next luncheon is again on the 6th. Kevin Lewis from the Greater Zion Convention and Tourism will speak to us. And, thank you for coming. Hi.